And we're live. So,
We're live.
welcome everyone.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to our wee episode on connection today. Connection in so many different ways. Connection with spirit, connection with the higher power, God, whatever we call it. Connection within our community, connection in our day-to-day activities. It's all about connection today. So, as we go along, definitely feel free to post your questions in the links below because we don't have this all planned out like we're following a script or anything like that. So you can ask questions at any time, and we'd love to be able to answer and bring some of you into the conversation that way. And so I'm Matthew Ashdown, and we've got Jason Goldsworthy here. He's busy sharing this around, so that's why he's quiet and looking at his screen right now. And so I'm living up in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. I've got a practice here where I work with people on the work of the Gene Keys. If you haven't seen Gene Keys, check it out. It's very cool stuff. GeneKeys.com, GeneKeys.com. So I do one-on-one sessions there. I also do group trainings and other kind of cool activities. So I'm very much into spirituality and practicality. So that's kind of why Jason and I created what we did. Jason, tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Jason Goldsworthy. I'm a spiritual medium. Obviously, some people might have heard of mediums and what they do. My idea about mediumship is not to empower myself, but to empower other people. I'm all about, if I can give some inspiration that's going to empower somebody to make the right decision within their lives or whatever, or move them into a certain aspect where they can realize their own potential. That's what makes me happy. I do private consultations. I've got a lot of workshops I give. I've got a lot of courses that I give. If you just search my name .com, you'll find me online. Also, our Facebook pages have been posted in here. And I love the mediumship and being that connection between two worlds, because it's like so humbling every time we make a connection. Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. Let's carry on with that connection, because
connection.
We can understand it in so many different ways, right? And so let's go with the first thing you were just saying there. Connection for you was,
well, connection to spirit, right? And it's like when you sometimes, like, when I was first starting out, when have you got connection? When you haven't got connection, when you feel that there's an energy coming through your body and going through every cell of your body, and you feel suddenly heightened, and you feel like, oh, I've got this connection. And you might say, hey, where's this feeling coming from? And suddenly you feel an enforcement of love that comes with it. And suddenly at that moment in time, that can come through either pictures or feelings of your own loved ones. And I know it happened to me in the beginning of my beginning of when I was developing, and I was like, oh, my own loved ones were coming through, and I was like, hey, isn't that great that they can communicate in this way? On the flip side of that, before I started developing, I felt I wasn't connected. I didn't have a connection. I felt how lonely that was. And it wasn't until I started developing my own gifts, Matthew, where I actually found out from, hey, there's a connection. There's a greater connection, not only to the spirit world and to my loved ones, but also a greater connection to like something bigger than me, like an energy that some people might call God, if you know what I mean. They might call it God. They might call it the universal energy,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even just as you're talking there, and just mindful of my own connection in that moment, because it's so easy to be able to generate that now. I mean, not for everyone all the time. It can seem challenging at times, but if we start with, like what you were just saying, that feeling that so many people feel at times, especially if they're walking down a spiritual path of some kind, there's this deep sense of loneliness. And oftentimes, to make that loneliness go away, our first thing that we want to do is reach out and connect, right?
Absolutely.
And sometimes we end up connecting with people and things that aren't necessarily great for us, right? So, I think part of this thing of going inwards and going and connecting inwards, first and foremost, is we feel that loneliness dissolve, because we recognize that we're a part of something greater, and if we're in the connecting into the spirit world often, we do recognize the ancestors are around all the time, that there is some kind of guidance, that we're never really alone. And I've heard that where it's like all one, alone is like all one, right? So we're all one. And but that doesn't mean we can bypass the feelings of feeling alone. It's actually through diving through that we actually find the connection. It's when we like recognize what that aloneness feels like, and we just breathe into it, we just acknowledge it. That's when it begins to dissolve, and that's actually where the connections deepen. So that loneliness is what drives us to connect, I find. Like for me, it was that deep sense of loneliness that I felt in life that did. And sometimes, like I said in the beginning, I would feel that loneliness, and so I'd drive out into the world and, well, not drive necessarily, but go out into the world and connect with people, and it wasn't necessarily the best kinds of connections. And a lot of times in relationships, what people think of as love is actually a connection that sometimes can not be great for them, right? But as we go down this path of going inwards, as our self-love increases and we create a deeper connection with spirit, that's when it's amazing to see the kind of people that we end up connecting with in the outer realms, the people in our lives, our friendships, our relationships, that kind of stuff. So, like all morning I've heard that song, Get Yourself Connected.
Yeah.
I can't remember who it's by right now, but I'm singing it in my head. So it's like, it's about that true connection within, and then watching the kinds of relationships we connect to in the world outside. That's my experience. What's yours?
I know that feeling that you're saying, Matthew. It's like when you're not connected, you're feeling like alone, misunderstood, and all that sort of thing. But when you actually get into the focus of, hey, when you're in flow, when everything's going right within your life, and you get a feeling, hey, I'm in flow. I seem to have more energy. I seem to be in more flow. I seem to be more connected to my true self, more connected to where I'm going in life. And that's like a spark within you. It's like, you're in some sort of inspirational flow, things are going your way. And most people that do sport, they have these peak moments of like, hey, I'm feeling connected, I'm in the right place at the right time. And that can happen in our daily lives, when we feel connected to our lives, when we feel connected to our path. And it doesn't matter what life's throwing at you at that time, when you're in that connection, you deal with it a lot better. It's when you're not in that connection, and when you're in that feeling of, oh, I'm overwhelmed, I'm tired. Actually, it's not me that's actually in control of this life. It's actually life that's in control of me. And it's like when you're saying, when you're moving towards that inner connection of yourself, that inner connection of who you are, that being, right, that light of who you are. And when you're connected with that and the stillness within, and you can bring that stillness out into your lifetime, then you've got something to offer. It's like a divine connection to self. And when you can respect yourself and give to yourself, then you have a lot more energy. You're in more sync, and things will happen. Things will just seem to fall into your path. Yeah, that's a bit how I understand it, Matthew.
Yeah, no, definitely understand that in the same way. And the connection that we feel. I'm getting a little bit of feedback. I don't know if other people are hearing that. Just a tiny bit.
What about now? I think
how's that there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's better.
Good.
No feedback. It was only like couple of seconds. So hopefully that's all other people noticed at the other end. So
main thing is we're still connected.
Jason's a master control. What's that?
Main thing is we're still connected.
We're still connected.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because as you were talking, one of the things I had, because I was on a Wi-Fi network, it says you have an unstable connection.
Oh boy!
And I was like, oh man, if only I could frame that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes in life I do feel like I've got an unstable connection, and sometimes we mistake the connections through the internet world for true connections, and it's like it's almost like the more we connect to the internet, sometimes the less connected we can be, right? And it's like that joke or meme that goes around the internet that talks about, go into the woods, you get a great connection there.
Yeah.
And that's something I would speak to, is that it's something that I've realized more and more in my life, is the importance for me and for others of connecting into nature too, because the more we connect into nature around us, the more it reflects our true nature, the more we
Yeah.
bring out our true nature. And so, it's there's now I take groups of people out every couple of weeks, and we practice some of Jason's the water finder in Lager in Germany. So he taught myself and others some dowsing. I've always been interested in ley lines and connecting to the earth in that way. And so we go out now every couple of weeks. We find a spot in Vancouver Island. We go out and we connect. We listen. I think a big part of connecting is listening. So a lot of people could go into a forest, walk around, look at the trees, and be like, "Oh, that's nice." And then you get us hippies walking in, going in. Okay, we're going to listen to the trees, and when groups of us stand around a particular tree, for instance, that seems to be calling and connecting with us, right? It sounds crazy, but you can actually, if we listen in, oftentimes the message that everyone's receiving is the same message, as long as we're listening in deeply. And so I feel a big part of connecting with others too, like others in the physical realm. It's a big part of connecting is listening deeply, not just hearing, right? Because I can hear stuff. It can go in one ear, right,
Yeah.
and then out the
Absolutely.
other sometimes, right? But the
Yeah.
listening is that like deep listening. So it's when we listen to somebody and we're hearing what they say, but we're also feeling what they're feeling, right? And that empath and that connection in that way. And I mean, that's how we connect deeper. So it's not only in nature, it's not only with the individuals in the physical realm with us, it's how we connect with each other as this one giant mind, because really we are all interconnected in that way. And it's also with the spirit world when you're doing mediumship. It's like you're listening, whether you're seeing images, um, noticing smells, or hearing anything clairaudiently. It's really about listening. That in order to enhance that connection, it's about you truly listening, right? So
Absolutely.
to me, that's a big part of it. And so often we go into relationships, or like take a look at us. We're on here. We're a one way thing. We're speaking to others. At least we can listen to each other, right?
Yeah.
We're speaking out to others. But that's what happens so often in life is we're taught go out, tell the world who you are, But I found greater connection by going out and asking myself, okay, who's the world around me? Who are these people? And
Yeah.
actually listening and
Yeah.
listening deeply, because a lot of times for other people to connect, they need somebody to listen deeply to them too.
Absolutely, Matthew. And I know what you're saying. It's like when you turn up, when you really turn up, not just when you turn up, when you're half looking at your phone, you're planning other things, you're thinking about all the other things you're going to do with your day. But when you really turn up for someone at that moment, that's when a
Mhm.
real, a real soul to soul connection can happen.
Mhm.
People get moved when your presence is there. When
Yeah,
you're really there for someone and you listen to
yeah,
them, in that way, it can become a really, wonderful, even a spiritual thing if it's meant to be, right? And that moment where you turn up for someone, you can be there to listen to them, in the right way, and
mhm.
that's really it. Sometimes it takes active listening to listen to every word. It's like, you saying about that part in nature as well. I think it's wonderful to connect to our environment and wonderful to connect to nature, because you're connecting to what the planet that we live on, you know,
Mhm.
and being aware of the energies around us, being aware of the planet that we live on, is like having respect, like respect for the
Mhm.
energy, having respect for what has been before. There's many sacred
Yeah.
places that we've been to, Matthew, and we've felt the energy there, and we felt not only is that energy there, but it's got a wisdom, and it's got a story that energy is emanating if
Mhm.
you take the time to feel it. And
Yeah.
just, even when I went into my work space, when I used to work with old people, if I turned up, half half, then the people there, they didn't get the feeling that they were being connected with. And when you turn up fully, then you notice the changes. They suddenly become more relaxed, and they suddenly realize that you've turned up for them, that they're
Yeah.
worth something. And if we do
Yeah.
that in our workplace, and if we do that in our place when we connect with other people, then we're really, connecting in the way that it should. I mean, when I first joined Facebook, and you mentioned that as well, because I was listening really good to you, Matthew, because we've got this connection. It's like I joined
Yeah.
Facebook and I thought, oh, I'm gonna get all my old friends, and I'll be able to see everything that they're doing, and we'll have this great connection. Um, but Facebook limits what you can see, so I can't see half the stuff that anyone's doing. We don't have a greater connection. Now and again, you get a flash of someone that comes through Facebook that you know hardly know, and the friends that you do want to see, they don't let you see it. And I'm like, but what
Yeah.
I found is when you go looking, you can lose hours in Facebook, and then you think, hold on, wait a minute, what about my environment? What about my family? What about the kids? Hold on, I shouldn't be burning dinner right now. Get off Facebook, you know? And it's
Yeah.
like that connection to the environment, what you're doing is like, yeah, turning up for your kids, turning up 100% for your kids. I mean, I've seen it happen. Like, you know, there's a lady, a mother. She's obviously very busy, and she was busy on Facebook, stressed and everything, lots of everything going on. And then the kid says something, oh, can't you see I'm busy? And carried on with her phone. And I thought, where are we going with this? That child needs
Hmm.
connection. We need connection, you know? So, I
Yeah.
mean, I've given myself a Facebook ban where I will not let myself go on Facebook for longer than, you know, 45 minutes per day. And it's just, you know, to get on there. And when I do and I answer messages, I will give them my full focus and time when I'm there. But on the other hand, the rest of the time, I'm connecting with people that I meet. And I
Yeah.
believe that winning back that presence and that connection that you can spend with people in this time, even if you're on the phone or even if
Hmm.
you're, you know, connecting on WhatsApp these days, but you're fully there. Because how many times you've got 100 other WhatsApps going on at the time, 100 of other stuff, and people they're just not feeling the resonance that you're listening to them or you're connecting to them, and
Yeah. Most people.
their
Yeah.
soul knows, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. Most people, if you're talking at them and you're not, there's no listening, you can feel them start to, move away, or at least energetically move away, right? And it's then that connection becomes lost.
yeah,
And it's so interesting listening to everything you're saying there. And it was making me think of, there's this idea, not an idea, but there's this, in the world of biology, there's this idea of the morphogenetic fields, and some people might be aware of that, but it's, whether you study them and understand them doesn't matter, because we all have this ability to tap into them. And so it's like, when we're really connected, I think when some of the greatest creations and ideas come through into this reality, it's because people have connected into these morphogenetic fields at the same time, or at the right time rather. So it's like, they say, when an idea's time has come, right? When it's ready, when the world is ready for it, when the collective consciousness is ready. And so, as well as connecting with individuals, as we come in and connect, it's like, that's how we bring forward these creative ideas. There's this term in science called science multiples. And that's where in the past there were discoveries in the world of science that were made simultaneously across the planet at times when they didn't have instant communication like this,
yeah,
where discoveries were made within a space of a week or two, and it wasn't that they were sharing information. These scientists were tapping into these morphogenetic fields where this wisdom lies. And we talk about that in the world of gene keys too. Is like, each gene key has its own morphogenetic field, so you don't have to read the book all the time to fully understand that concept, that particular. You could, when you become more connected, you can tap into these morphogenetic fields through conscious awareness, and we can retrieve information that we never thought we could retrieve. Channelers do this all the time when they connect in, and they bring forward information, and it's like, holy moly, where did that come from? I mean, a lot of the Gene Keys work is exactly that, is channeled work. And the Course in Miracles is another example of that, where people are bringing through information because they've made that effort to go deeply connected. So that connection, it brings forth information, and it's like, it's the difference between the dreamer who dreams about what they want to bring into this reality, and the genius who actually does, right?
yeah,
It's like the person who brings it in, brings the information through, brings the ideas through into reality, is somebody who has recognized these things. It's like Martin Luther King. We celebrated his birthday this week, so he's a great example, right? He's got his "I Have a Dream" speech, right? So he stands there and he talks about his "I Have a Dream" speech. He didn't sit down. He didn't walk away from that "I Have a Dream" speech and just sit down and do nothing about it. He got himself connected through his prayer, through his practices, whatever it was, and he got himself connected in the world. And because of him, look where we're making movement. Sure, there's still things, upsets in the field, so to speak, and we have to address those. But that's that bringing that forth, bringing that through. And it's so the people that we consider the geniuses in the world were people who spent time in stillness. They spent time getting connected. Albert Einstein wasn't somebody who, he wasn't sitting there. He would sit there and do his mathematical formulas and stuff with his logical mind, but it was his dreaming, it was his daydreaming, where he would imagine things in the world, and it was literally he was connecting into these morphogenetic fields, and so it was like he connected into an understanding that he brought forward. And no scientist ever brought something new, a new understanding, a new theory into the world by just using their logical mind. They had to get connected somehow. And so whatever creative path you're on, whatever world you're connecting into, it will blow your mind. Just quickly, I had an example the other day, is that did a meditation. Wayne Dyer, we love Wayne Dyer, right? Oh, yeah. So I imagine sitting on this bench with Wayne Dyer, and he was sharing wisdom. This is a guided meditation by my wife, Nicole. And so we did this guided meditation, and the word, it was, is there a message from the person sitting next to you on the bench? And I heard it clearly auditorily. Yeah. And it's left me contemplating for quite a few days. Yeah. And the words were, don't go looking for solutions to problems that don't exist. Yeah. And I was like, well, it's not a straightforward sentence like love yourself or believe in yourself. It was like, okay, I got to sit with that and contemplate that and meditate on that. Yeah. But to me, that was an example of that wisdom that we can connect into from the fields that are around us.
Absolutely. I love that bit that you said about Albert Einstein, because I believe that his mother got his grades from the school, and they weren't good. And he asked her, what's my grades? And he said, oh, they're just saying that you're gifted. And really, in school, he wasn't a good achiever. His brain thought differently, and because his mum believed in him, he went on to be this great genius because his mind thought differently than the school system that it was, which is quite amazing. This connection that we have to ourselves, it can make such a big thing. Like you mentioned the gene keys, Matthew, and you mentioned the connection that we can have to this. And like Martin Luther King, and I just think, well, he was connected to his soul purpose. And how did he get connected to his soul purpose? He believed in himself. And like, if anyone's thinking of beginning mediumship or beginning to become a speaker or beginning to be something inspired, become connected to yourself. Become really present with yourself. Like, don't have distractions. So you can achieve it through meditation, but you can also achieve it just by sitting and experiencing yourself and accepting yourself like 100%, like, all your faults, nobody's perfect, accepting the faults that you have, and accepting that you're a work in progress. And if you can accept that you're a work in progress, that you're going from now into a new dimension tomorrow, because tomorrow you might be a better version of yourself, but it's not about getting there. It's actually turning up in the now for yourself. And if you turn up in the now for yourself, then you're going to start feeling that inspiration for yourself turning up. And if you're at that stage, then you can start thinking about, okay, where do I want to go with this? How do I want to connect with other people? What do I like? What do I not like? And in that way, your presence is being felt by someone else. I mean, I always had the thing when I was a young kid, the teacher will say, do you like this? And I was too honest. I'd always say, no. Do you like school? No. And I always used to get into trouble because I was too honest. So I learned to disconnect and not say, when they ask me a question like, what do you think, Jason? I say, oh, I think it's okay, yeah, or I'll try and avoid the question. But even now I'm like, yeah, it's about turning up, it's about showing up, it's about being honest, right? There's so many spiritual people out here, and we're all connected to our own groups and our own forms of groups, and we say, hey, we are the, let's, I'm not saying that this is, but let's say we're all the vegetarian people. There's nothing wrong with vegetarian people, but I know there's a guy, the yoga guy, that made some joke about it, that they're the more spiritual ones. And I'm just like, then you got the meat eaters, but the meat eaters, they're also spiritual, but they're living because they have this belief in meat, and we all have these different beliefs, and we all seem to move into our little communities. Even on Facebook, we'll be sitting in a community
Yeah.
here and a community there, and we've got the spiritual church community, and we've got another spiritual communities, and all these communities. And if we're really about connection, then why do we fit in with all these like minds? I love
Hmm.
to connect with people that have a different opinion to me. I love to
Yeah.
connect with people that will challenge my views. I love to connect with people that are different to me. I love. I must say, I do love vegetarians. My wife is one of them. I you know and I do tend to go over to that side as well now and again, when I'm going for. But it's just like, when you can realize that when we're really connecting with people is when we really listen to their point of view, even if someone has a different view than we have, a different belief system than we have, that we accept them. And I think most of the problems in this world is through not accepting people for who they really are. And it's like, they may not be you, and they may not actually react to things that you are, but when I think about, I've got a little story. I saw a mother. She was there, and she was on her phone. When I saw that, she was in hospital. She had a child in hospital. The one was crying. The other one she had by the hand. She was trying to get us all together, and she was stressed, and she was shouting at the one child. And I thought, you could have said, could you please not, shout at the child? But you don't know what's been going on in that mum's life, that what she's been having to do, and why she reacts the way she did. So I was
Yeah.
just sitting there and with compassion and admiration for a mum that, was juggling all these balls together and making it happen, even though you may disagree that she was on the phone. But the thing is, she's present. She's as present as she could be at that moment in time. She was the best version of herself at that moment in time, and who knows what happened in the morning. And the people we meet in the day, we say, oh, that person's so arrogant, or that person said this, or that person said that. But you don't know what's happened to them in the morning. You don't know what's happened to them. You don't know how their day has been. You don't know anything about their upbringing. You don't know. And the thing is, when I think about it, when you actually meet people with compassion and admiration because they're turning up the best version of themselves, even if they're not even if they're not the same as you, it doesn't mean they're wrong. It just means that they're just showing their wisdom for what they see their wisdom is at that moment. And you might think, oh, that wisdom's limited because they're not vegetarian, or their wisdom's limited because they're not a meat eater. And really, their wisdom's not limited. It's like, because then you're segregating yourself from them. When you really join them, you understand. You stop, you breathe, you turn up. And that's what you were saying, Matthew. When you stop and you breathe and you turn up and you have compassion, you watch what happens to people when you really turn up. That's the beautiful thing about connection.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm aware we've got to finish up in a moment, but I'm feeling, yeah, compelled to just, yeah, it's like it's that gift of understanding, because we fall into the things of right and wrong. We can look at the events that happened in Washington D.C. with the First Nations drummer and the young boy there, and just seeing what a cacophony that created around the world. And I myself noticed where I jumped into opinion, and I had to step back and become aware of that. But also, it's like it's the balance between not tolerating certain behaviors, but also seeking to understand the whole situation. And the thing is, we have this need for answers. We need to know why people do this and things like that. But the understanding you're talking about is beyond anything that the intellect can conclude, because if I believe I'm right, I'm going to find all the facts to back that up. If I believe they're wrong, if I believe they are wrong for being vegetarian or being a meat eater, I will find all the facts to back up why they're wrong and I'm right. And that doesn't create the understanding.
No.
The understanding comes, when we see what was it in that person's life, and it comes back to that connection and to that listening, because we can't connect if our logical or intellectual mind is bouncing back all these different ideas. The intellect is something I've had a lot of struggles with in my life, because as well as being a very useful tool at times, it's actually been sometimes the greatest enemy, but it prevents that connection with myself and others. And understanding is the key. Understanding is a feeling. It's a place beyond the intellect where we connect deeply with other people. So I just love that you're bringing that up, because that's such a, we can't understand others until we go past right and wrong. And it was Francis of Assisi who said, seek first to understand, right? And I love his prayer. And just seek first to understand. And if we can remember that, boy, I think the connection on the planet will just go up. And even though people can disagree, they can still have conversations. Something that's coming out of last weekend in Washington, D.C. is that the Nathan Phillips, the First Nation gent, and Nick Salmon, the young guy, they've offered to speak with one another. So that could be something, if they're willing to deeply listen to each other, that could transform an understanding. If that happens, who knows?
That's a beginning. Well, I mean, I've loved this talk. We're really at time, but if this video has inspired you in any way, and you want to share it with other people. We want to inspire people with our talks, and we're going to be doing them every Thursday. So don't forget to come back next Thursday, and we'll have a different topic. If you want to give us a topic, just write it in the comments here. Let us know a topic you'd like us to talk about. We'll go into it. We'll investigate it, and we certainly will do it. If you want to connect to us, because it's all about connection, I've put the links into our personal pages here. If you want to know about Matthew and his gene keys, he's on there. You want to know about me and my mediumship and where I'm off to. I believe in February I'm off to England somewhere. I've got a couple of online things I've started. It's all new. I know Matthew does a lot of things online as well, and it's amazing. I know Matthew is just as passionate as just got as much passion as I have for the work that he does, bringing people in connection with their inner self and their inner work, and bringing them into the next vibration of who they are. And he does it all through the gene keys. Just like I would love to connect people to their inner self, whether I'm in a coaching situation or my mediumship. I want to wish you all a wonderful evening, and I'm wishing you a lot of love. So that's bye-bye from me.
And bye-bye from me. Sounds like the two Ronnies.
It does, doesn't it? It does. It certainly has a little ring to it, doesn't it?